It's funny. When you think about the biggest problems in a team or even in your family, you probably think of big dramatic fights, right? But what if I told you the real danger isn't conflict? It's a weird, quiet, and honestly pretty miserable kind of agreement. Today, we're going to dive into a psychological trap where everyone agrees to do something that absolutely nobody wants to do. And it all kicks off with a true story. It's about a family, a really terrible idea, and a very, very long car ride. Okay, so picture this. You're in Coleman, Texas. It's July, and the heat isn't just hot, it's heavy. It's that kind of wet blanket heat that just sits on you, and all you want to do is sip some lemonade and not move a muscle. The air is just thick. And yeah, there's a fan going, but let's be real, it's not helping. It's just stirring the hot soup of air around the porch. Seriously, nobody wants to do anything. And then someone pipes up. The father-in-law leans back in his chair and says, "Hey, let's go to Abilene for dinner." Sounds harmless enough, right? A simple little suggestion. But what did that really mean? Well, for starters, Abilene was 53 miles away, and they were going to take a 1950s Buick with no air conditioning, basically a metal oven on wheels. Oh, and they had to drive through a dust storm to get there. The grand prize at the end? A bland, totally forgettable meal at a cafeteria. So hours later, when they finally got home, exhausted and grumpy, the truth came out. Get this, not a single person in that car had actually wanted to go. Every single one of them just said yes to be nice. So that miserable trip wasn't just some weird family anecdote. Nope, it actually became the poster child for a well-known psychological phenomenon. So let's really break down what was going on here. A management expert named Jerry B. Harvey heard this story, and back in 1974, he gave it a name, the Abilene Paradox. It's what happens when a group of people fails to manage their agreement, and as a result, they all end up doing something that none of them wanted to do in the first place. And this is what's so wild about it. We spend so much energy at work and at home trying to deal with conflict, right? Trying to manage disagreements. But Harvey's point was that the real silent killer of good decisions isn't the loud fight. It's the quiet, fake agreement. It's the illusion that everyone's on the same page when they're not. So why on earth does this happen? Well, deep down, it's driven by something called action anxiety. You know that feeling, that knot in your stomach, when you know you should probably object, but you're just terrified of being that person. The difficult one, the dissenter, the one who ruins the good vibes. And this isn't just some theory. There are classic psychology experiments that show just how powerful this urge to conform really is, even when we know, for a fact, that the group is completely wrong. All right, let me throw a number at you. 75%. What could that possibly be? Well, it's the percentage of people who knowingly went along with a wrong answer in one of the most famous experiments ever. Back in the 1950s, a psychologist named Solomon Asch ran these brilliant experiments. He'd show people a line and ask them to match it to one of three others. Super easy, right? But here's the twist. He filled the room with actors who were told to give the same, obviously wrong answer. And what happened? A staggering 75% of the real participants caved to the social pressure and agreed with the wrong answer at least one time. And this whole thing gets even worse because of another psychological quirk. The bystander effect. We basically pass the buck. We're sitting in a meeting thinking, well, if this new marketing plan was really a bad idea, surely someone else would have said something by now. The problem is, everyone else in the room is thinking the exact same thing about you. But hang on, it's not quite that simple. There's another layer to this that's really interesting. We assume this all comes down to fear, but what if it's something else? So, are we all just cowards when we stay silent on the road to Abilene? Or could it be that we're actually trying to be kind? And this is the real kicker. A lot of the time, we fall into this trap not because we're scared, but because we're actively trying to be agreeable. We want to be a good team player. We think we're keeping the peace by not making waves, when what we're really doing is helping build a collective disaster out of a bunch of well-meaning little lies. Okay, so this is the crucial part, right? How do we stop the car? How do we keep this from happening in our meetings, on our projects, at our family gatherings? Well, good news. There are actual concrete things we can do.
All right, here are 3 things you can try. First, the check-in role. Before you finalize a big decision, officially assign someone to be the devil's advocate. Make it their job to find all the flaws in the plan. Second, try using private ballots. Before anyone talks, have everyone just write down what they really think on a piece of paper. This gets you the honest truth before peer pressure kicks in. And finally, and this one's the most important, you have to reward the no. You need to build a culture where the person who puts their hand up and says, wait a minute, is this really a good idea, is treated like a hero, not a troublemaker.
Because you have to remember, at the end of the day, that person isn't being difficult. They're often the only one in the car who's actually looking at the map, while everyone else is just hoping for the best. So I'll leave you with this question. Think about your job, your life, your relationships right now. What miserable trip to Abilene are you currently just nodding along with? And what do you think would happen if you were the one brave enough to finally say, you know what? I'm not sure I want to go.